Hi everyone, this is Monica Main and welcome to my presentation on the secrets to building business credit. This is a brand new cutting edge methodology that I'm teaching on building business credit for the year of 2015. A lot of things have changed in the last couple of years with reference to building business credit. So the reason I wanted to do this presentation is that there seems to be a lot of confusion as to how the new methodologies work, how they're different from the old methodologies, and what you need to do right now to focus on building stellar business credit. So here we go. One of the things that you should be aware of, by the way, is that if you've already started building business credit using the Dun & Bradstreet system, it's not that all of your efforts have been nil to this point. It's just that I'm going to show you a little bit different and better of a strategy to use for building business credit from this point forward. So first of all, as you know, you probably already have the reasonings as to why you're building business credit, but these are the reasons that you want to be focusing in on building business credit for these purposes. And the bottom line is that a lot of people don't understand the amount of leverage that you get when it comes to building business credit. They don't understand that, when you apply for a personal credit card, the bank is going to limit you on how much they're going to give you in unsecured credit. However, when you apply to the same bank for a business unsecured credit card, they're going to give you a lot more money even with the same personal FICO score, because they do have to check your personal credit whenever they're issuing any credit. And unfortunately, if anybody out there ever mentions that, you can get a loan through a bank, a business loan, or a business line of credit, or a business credit card without having to up your personal Social Security number, they are 100% wrong. And the reason being is because a lot of things have changed in banking for a couple of reasons. One, after 9/11, we had something called the Patriot Act go into effect, which required all banks and lenders to be able to verify people's identities whenever they are trying to get loans or trying to get money or open up a bank account. And so the Patriot Act requires banks to actually pull your personal credit. And so anybody and everybody who's out there who furnishes information on building business credit who claims or states that these banks will not check your personal credit or pull your personal credit, they're wrong. Maybe they're giving outdated information, or maybe they just have no experience when it comes to business credit. But the banks do have a law to abide and uphold, which is the Patriot Act, which requires that. And so for those of you that think that you're going to be getting around having to cough up your Social Security number, the answer is no, that's not going to happen. It happened years and years ago, many, many years ago, but not anymore. That's not how it works anymore. And so if you're dealing with any reputable or legitimate bank or lender, by law, they do have to ask for your personal Social Security number. Now, whether or not they ask for a personal guarantee, that depends on the amount of money that you're borrowing. So a personal guarantee is not always necessary, but 9 times out of 10 you will have to provide a personal guarantee. They like that, especially after our near banking collapse in the year 2008. A lot of banks like to have that extra layer of security, if you will, by asking for a personal guarantee. You could always say that you don't want to offer a personal guarantee, and then they could decide whether or not you're going to get the money. But aside from that, most of them are going to also require a personal guarantee as well. And again, this is applying to legitimate banks and lenders out there, not so much to fly-by-night operations or whoever else you might deal with, But I'm talking about Bank of America, Wells Fargo, very large banking organizations that are legitimate, that are worldwide, and this is what they're going to require. So this is obviously the set of reasons as to why you're looking at doing business credit or getting business credit situated. So here's your basic foundation. I like to see that my students have a minimum mid FICO score of 680 or above. It's ideal if you're over 700. So 680 is the bare basement bottom FICO that you have to have. But if you're 700 and over, then you pretty much are in the clear. So there's a lot of confusion as to what it is. Is it 680? Is it 700? Sometimes Monica says 680, sometimes Monica says 700, and the answer is it's not a set number, if you will, because there are a lot of creditors that will give you credit at a 680 or above, but it's always it's a coin toss at that point. You don't know whether you're going to get it or not, but more than likely you will. You'll have a 70 to 80% chance in getting unsecured business credit with the majority of the large banks and lenders out there if you have a mid FICO of 680 or above. However, if you don't want to worry or have to chew your fingernails on whether or not you're going to qualify for the credit, then you should focus on getting that mid FICO at 700 or higher. And then you're pretty much in the clear. You don't have to chew your nails and worry, am I going to qualify? You're pretty much going to qualify. And then when you're at 720 and above, you pretty much don't have to worry about anything unless you're asking for ungodly amounts of money, in which case, you're going to have to work on some other things other than your mid FICO. So that's where it stands right now. So the bare basement bottom number has to be 680. It's 700 if you don't want to worry or stress out about whether you'll qualify. No recent bankruptcies, that's within the last 5 years. No recent foreclosures within the last 5 years. No judgments or charge-offs within the last 2 to 3 years. And no mortgage lates within the last 2 to 3 years. Mortgage lates that also goes for credit card lates as well, and lates on your car payment. You don't want any of that stuff in the last 2 to 3 years. So essentially, from this day forward, make sure you start paying your bills on time. Otherwise, you're not going to be getting your good personal credit. So without good personal credit, it's pointless to build business credit. Years ago, when I first started out teaching business credit strategies, it was still possible because the banks were still going through all of their changes. It was still possible to be able to work around your personal credit and be able to build business credit and then use business credit in lieu of personal credit. And now that's all sort of changed as all the banks have come up to par with their new policies and regulations after the banking collapse or near banking collapse in the fall of 2008. And they've all pretty much come to terms with the fact that they want to see that you have some personal financial management skills. And that means that if your personal credit is a disaster, then they can only be led to believe that your business credit will be a disaster if they actually go so far as to lend you any business credit. And so they sort of, relate, hand in hand. And that's why now you do have to have some good personal credit going on there. The personal guarantee, it's required. It's going to be required for large loans, large sums of unsecured business credit, um, credit cards, business credit cards. I mean, that's just how the rules are now. Whereas they want to make sure that they have that extra layer of security in the event that you default, that they have somebody to go after. Banks and credit cards, they'll drastically restrict what an individual can qualify for, as far as a personal line of credit or a personal unsecured credit card. However, when it comes to businesses, they actually do up the ante and allow a lot more credit. For example, I always give my students the example. A couple of years ago, I was trying to, come up with the most, I guess you could say, cutting edge strategies at the time for business credit. And I always use myself as a personal guinea pig, especially since I have a lot of personal experience when it comes to building both personal and business credit. And I was coming up with this seminar presentation, and I'm like, just for the hell of it, I'm going to apply for 2 credit cards. One's going to be personal, one's going to be business from the same bank, since I happen to, at that same period of time, actually get a pre-approval letter through the mail for both Bank of America, a personal credit card, and Bank of America, a business credit card, and they were both unsecured credit cards. So I mailed in both of the applications at the same time. So what Bank of America came back at is for a personal unsecured credit card, they gave me a $5,000 credit limit. But when it came to the business unsecured credit card, they gave me something ridiculous. It was like, I want to say, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was upwards of around $18,000. I think it was 18.5 is what they ended up giving me. And so, case in point, they obviously will give you much higher of an amount, even if obviously they're pulling the same, FICO information, the same personal credit information, but because they understand that businesses will need a lot more money to be able to circulate and be able to, pay payroll and pay for trade supplies and pay for a variety of other things, they have no problem giving out a lot more as far as credit limits go. For personal credit, they don't understand why anybody would want a need a $20,000 credit limit on a credit card unless you plan on racking it up on a bunch of stuff, and that's usually when people get into a lot of financial trouble. So, please note that, I've done the experiment myself on myself, and I could tell you firsthand that banks will always, always give a lot more in business credit than they will in personal credit, even though they're looking at the same mid personal FICO score on both sides. And so another example is that I was at a Bank of America recently to make some account changes on an error that they had typed in one of my accounts, and it was a brand new account, brand new business that was just recently filed last year, wasn't even in the state of California. It's actually two different businesses that I've filed in Michigan. There were two different for the purposes of investing in real estate. And so they opened up my account. I want to say it was last year sometime, but when I went in to make the account change on one of the accounts, it was 6 months later or earlier this year. And when I was sitting down with the banker, she had offered to give me credit on not just one, but both of the accounts. And the only reason I took it is because they offered me, a deferred interest until the fall. And so I'm like, I'll take it. That's like on one credit card, it was like 6 months deferred interest, and the other one, it was like almost 9 months or something like that. So I'm like, I'll take it. Plus, they were going to give me $100 credit for each of my accounts, which was great as long as I spent, I think, $500 on the card within the first 30 days. And so I applied for both cards. And they ended up calling me afterwards on both of the applications because they wanted to find out additional information. And again, you're going to have to understand how this whole process works. You're going to have to tell them what you're going to be using the money for, which will determine exactly how much you get. So for one business, I actually told them it was a consulting company, a marketing consulting company. And because I told them it was a marketing consulting company, they only gave me $7,000 for that particular business. Now again, it was a brand new business, just recently filed in 2014. What isn't even a year old, and they already gave me $7,000. But because I told them it was a consulting business, in their system, in their algorithms, and how they figure out how much credit you actually end up getting, they only gave me $7,000. With the other company, I told them it was a company that invests in real estate. And the lady was asking me a bunch of questions. Of course, she didn't really understand the type of real estate that I do, but I told her that we purchase and manage multifamily assets, and we go in and we do a lot of rehab on the units, and we usually need the money for construction supplies and, contractors and so forth. So she ended up giving me about 17,000 on that one. So I actually get $10,000 more on the other one based on just simply the answers that I gave the woman on the phone. So case in point, when they do call you, when bankers do call you, you need to be very clear on what you're going to be telling them. And when you're telling them that you're doing some kind of service business, they're not going to give you that much money. But when you tell them you have any kind of other type of business, maybe you do some kind of internet company, maybe you have some kind of need to be able to buy a lot of, wholesale items. Maybe you have a company that is a real estate company where you do flips. The lady kept thinking I was doing flipping real estate. She kept talking about flipping. Oh, so you flip real estate? No, not exactly. And I kept telling her, no, we don't do that. But in her mind, the only form of real estate she fully understood was flipping. And so that's why, for some reason, she gave me that much money, because she thought that I was going to be putting the money into the properties, rehabbing them, and then flipping them, and then getting the money back out right away. And again, depending on what you tell these bankers on the phone is what's going to, ultimately result in how much money you get. So please avoid trying to tell them that you're a service business of any kind, because you're not going to get that much money whenever you're telling them that you're a service business, that you're a consultant, or anything like that. So I just thought I'd share that with you because I think it's relatively important. So to start the process, obviously you do need to have a business entity. You can't be a sole proprietor, meaning that you go personally down to the county and file a DBA and then you open up a bank account with your personal social security number. That's not what you want to do. That's not an entity. An entity is when you actually legally file in your home state. You don't want an LLC unless you actually have a physical business partner, and I don't recommend that you have a physical business partner, because even if you're married and you fully trust your spouse, which is great, you don't leverage yourself very well that way. In fact, it would be better if your spouse got his or her own S corporation in your home state and built business credit by himself or by herself, because then you can double leverage yourself. So I don't recommend that everybody get all cutesy and they file their LLCs together, because the IRS no longer recognizes a single member LLC. And I have arguments with students all the time. They're like, oh, well, this state and that state allows you to file a single member LLC. Well, most states will allow you to file a single member LLC. However, the IRS doesn't recognize a single member LLC. So when it comes time to, filing your taxes annually, you're going to have a problem because they're going to kick it back your paperwork. And I don't know about you, but I absolutely hate getting letters from the IRS. And they'll send you a nice little letter and they'll say, you know what, sorry, you can't file as an LLC, so you have one of two options. Option A, find yourself a partner, or option B, refile your corporation to where it actually reflects the legitimate status that it is, which they would tell you basically to file for an S or C corporation. So I'm just telling you up front because I have a lot of arguments with students and I don't know why they feel like they want to argue with me. I've been through all of this. I know all of this. I know how all of this stuff works. I've been through it personally and I can tell you the IRS no longer recognizes single member LLCs. So please don't try to pull one over on them because you're not going to be able to make it work. So if you have an LLC right now, you might want to A, figure out how you can convert it to an S corporation, which you can call a law firm in your state or in the state in which it's filed, or B, start over and get yourself a new S corporation. Now, please note that all corporations, when you file them, they're all automatically C corporations when they come out. Automatically. That's just how it works. You don't file it as an S corporation out of the gates. It's just not how it works. They all start as C corporations, and then you have to convert it into an S corporation once you get the corporate resolution paperwork. And it's very easy to do this. There's no reason that you need to, I mean, I like getting a law firm involved, like those ones that you find online, like LegalZoom or one of those, for example. I like AmeriLawyer.com, but they only handle about 6 states. And so have them file your initial base paperwork, but don't order all the extra services. Don't have them get the S corporation stuff because all they're going to do is prepare a form for you that you're going to have to fill out and mail in anyway. So what is the point of paying them $75 or $150 to do all that when you can do it on your own? And I'm teaching you how to do it. And so basically what you have to do then is once you get your base corporate resolution paperwork that they filed for you, then you could file the rest of the stuff. So the first thing you do is go to the irs.gov website, get your EIN number. Now, mind you, please note that you do have to be at a printer, so be at a desktop or a laptop that's attached to a printer because you're going to need to print out your new EIN number to open up your bank account. And so once you get your EIN number, then you can go ahead and file Form 2553. You could also type that into the search bar at the irs.gov website. And once you file that form, you basically either can fax it in, they're on the old school system where you can fax it in, or you can mail it in to them. They'll give you instructions on what to do, and you're going to need your EIN on that form to be able to fulfill the paperwork. Once you do that, then they will send you a confirmation back, and when they send you a confirmation back, save that with your corporate resolution paperwork so you always have that, and then you are designated as an S corporation. You want to do that right away. S corporations and LLCs always end on December 31st of every year. However, a C corporation will end on the last day of the month, whatever month you filed. So, for example, if you filed your corporation on June 4th, for example, and that was stamped on June 4th, then the last day of that C corporation will be June 30th, unless you change it otherwise. If you filed your corporation paperwork on October 15th, then more than likely the last day of your C corporation will be Halloween, which would be October 31st. So that's how C corporations work. That's the nice part about the C corporation is that it can end at any time. Your fiscal year can be anything. But with LLCs and S corporations, they always end on December 31st, and they always have to be filed 1 month before your personal taxes are due, which would be March 15th. And so, again, that's basically everything in a nutshell as far as how you need to set up your corporation. Once you get your corporation stuff set up, and again, it should be in your home state. Don't be setting up in Nevada or Delaware or Wyoming or all those nice, sexy states that they try to get you to, set up in unless you actually live there. Otherwise, you're going to have some issues later on with interstate transport laws where basically you're doing business and you're not supposed to be doing business, across state lines. They have issues with that. And so even though any lawyer who's setting up in Delaware or, Nevada or anywhere else, they're going to try to sell you on the prospect of doing business in Nevada, but you're going to find that you're going to have problems with that later on. So you don't want to do that. The reason I set up Michigan LLCs is because I actually do business there with those LLCs. And the reason I'm able to set up an LLC there is because I use myself as one of the entities in the LLC, and I use my corporation, my S corporation, as my umbrella for the other entity as the LLC. So that's how I'm able to get around the single member LLC is that they're not actually single members. So you have to have your S corporation as your umbrella, which is the one you're going to be setting up all your business credit under, and that will become ultimately one of your entities in your LLCs for real estate, and then you personally will become the other entity in your LLCs for all of your real estate transactions. So none of your S corporation, which is your umbrella, will never actually be purchasing real estate, but you will have new LLCs set up for each real estate transaction in any state that you want, and your S corporation as your umbrella will be one entity and you will personally be the other. So this is sort of how it works. It's called obviously your umbrella corporation, and um, you know, obviously you'll need the umbrella to be able to start the process of getting and building business credit alongside of yourself, who will also be getting good personal credit going, and then you'll both be using your credit to be able to fund and get mortgages for your real estate transactions. So if your personal credit needs a lot of work now, you could still start your S corporation now and get your seasoning going, because a lot of banks like to see 2-year seasoning going. And so once you get your, S corporation going, at least you're starting the seasoning process, and you could still work on your personal credit. By the way, there's only one legitimate bank that I know of that offers a secured business credit card. It's Wells Fargo. They actually offer a secured business credit card, so you might want to consider that when you want to start the process of building business credit while you're even working on your personal credit. When you're using a corporation, you're picking out a name. You want to use something that's really bland, nondescript. You don't want it to clearly identify or specify what you do for business. And so that allows you some flexibility, as well as being able to work with banks who are going to be calling you on the phone and asking you different questions about what your business does. And if you have a generic name, you could literally tell them that you do anything, and they would have to believe it because your business name is nondescript and very generic. So that's what I recommend as far as that. If you have, say, for example, a seasoned corporation, and say, you have a corporation that's 10 years old, and it's called Frank's Painting Service or Frank's Flowers or something to that effect, and you want to, use that seasoning, that's a great idea. Don't let that seasoning go. Don't start a new S corporation, because now you have seasoned activity. You also have what they call activity, business activity with filed tax returns. And so you could actually, get a DBA on it so that you can actually become more nondescript. So for example, if it is Frank's Flowers Inc., then you can get a DBA on that corporation and call it something like FF Direct or something, to where it becomes a very nondescript, it's a very generic name at that point. And so therefore you don't lose all of the business credit that you've built up. You don't lose the tax return activity, because tax returns do become essential if you do want to start getting business lines of credit later on. You do have to have some tax returns showing some business activity. And so you want to be able to get something that's a little more nondescript. So this is how you can use your current corporation that you've been using for business all these years and actually turn it into, a business credit generating machine by making it a nondescript name and finally a DBA to do that. You could also use this as an extra asset protection measure, to where if anybody ever wants to sue you, that takes a little bit longer for them to actually figure out what the name of your business is. I've had an issue recently with a lawsuit with a student of mine, and it was the only student lawsuit I've ever had, and it was actually dropped. We came to terms with the lawsuit, and so it was a dropped lawsuit, but part of my strategy was that I actually chose a DBA on my real business name that actually reflects the name of a real incorporation here in California. And I did that on purpose. And what happened was he actually ended up filing the lawsuit against another corporation, thinking that the corporation was mine because I chose a DBA that looked a lot similar to the name of my company. And so he actually chose the wrong business name when he filed. So it would have been thrown out of court anyway, because he actually filed it against another corporation that was similar to my DBA, and it would have been thrown out. And that's really a good idea to do that, to where you're actually covering yourself and even choosing a DBA that reflects somebody else's corporation name. So the corporation I'm talking about is that um, I actually have a DBA, Global Success Strategies, but there's actually a Global Success Strategies Inc. that's filed here in California, but it's not my corporation. And so when the student actually filed a lawsuit against me, he filed it against Global Success Strategies Inc., assuming that the DBA and the corporation were the same, and in fact they're not. That's why the lawsuit would have ultimately been thrown out of court if it ever ended up that far, because I actually don't own and I've never been a corporate officer of the company Global Success Strategies Inc. And so I did that on purpose. So one of the things that you might want to consider is finding another corporation in your state that reflects the DBA that you want to choose, so that if somebody decides to sue you, they're automatically going to sue that other company and not you because you happen to have the DBA version of their corporation name, if that makes any sense. The importance of an EIN: it is your employer identification number, which is equivalent to the social security number of your corporation, and it is required if you want your company to be its own entity. And so if you want to build business credit through Dun & Bradstreet and Experian Business, you do have to have your EIN, but it's also required for a bank account. And of course, it's going to be tied to you directly, because when you fill out the form online with the IRS, they're going to ask for your social security number, so it will actually be tied to you. So here are two business building credit levels. These are the levels that I was sort of suggesting at the very beginning of this presentation that things have gotten a lot different when it comes to building business credit. But that's because we've added a level, and then we've added level 1, which is the easy level, which didn't exist a few years ago. And so this is the level that I want you to concentrate on, because the second level is very, very difficult. So level 1 is the easy way. It's very cost effective to pull off, very quick to build business credit. And then we have this, which is supposed to say the hard way. It's not as difficult as you think it is, but what I don't like about the level 2 is that it's very time consuming, and it's very costly. It's not very cost effective for most of my students to do. So it's actually supposed to read the hard way. So if you can ignore my mistyping there. So here's the two credit building entities that we know about, which is Dun & Bradstreet. D&B requires a fee to set up a solid credit profile. It's becoming less and less reputable every single year. The reason I had actually had it with Dun & Bradstreet when I figured out what they were all about a couple years ago. I had actually gone to a trade show in Las Vegas. I think was it 2012, 2013. These years are starting to fly by so fast I can't remember. But I had an issue with Dun & Bradstreet where they had a booth set up at the trade show. Now, mind you, this was a wholesaler, like a convenience store and grocery store wholesale convention that I was at, and we had a trade show booth there. And Dun & Bradstreet also had a booth there, but what pissed me off was that they were going booth to booth trying to solicit business. Normally, trade shows don't like that you solicit business booth to booth like that, but if you have a booth there, then they sort of look the other way. And so they were actually going booth to booth to solicit business. So I finally had a conversation with this guy because he was bugging me, wouldn't leave me alone. And he's like, I'll pull your credit for you for free. And I'm like, I have two different businesses that I have DUNS numbers for. Will you pull credit for both of them? And he says, sure. So I give him the DUNS number on both of my businesses that I have. I have a health supplement company and I also have Global Success. And so I gave him the DUNS number on both because I carry all of my numbers with me. They're in the notes section of my cell phone. And he pulled my credit on both sides. And for both of the companies, I was signed up, and at the time, their service was only $69 a month. It's gone up to $99 a month now. And so basically, I had their basic service, and it's basically a monitoring thing where it allows you to build your profile. It monitors the credit activity, tells you who's pulling your credit, yada yada yada. And so I told him, I'm like, I'm part of your $69 a month thing. And he was trying to sell me on I think it was like one package was $9,000, another one was like $12,000. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And I told him, like, well, what do I need that for? Because I'm building my own profile. I basically plug in my own trade accounts into the Dun & Bradstreet system. So I really don't need you guys, because basically he was trying to sell me on the $9,000 base package where they would actually build my credit for me. And I'm like, I don't need that. I can build my own credit because I know who my trade account people are and I know how to put my trade references into your system. And he basically told me, he laughed at me and he says, well, you know what, that part of our system is basically a scam, is what he told me. And not so many words, but that's what he suggested, the way he sneered and snickered at me about, wanting to, build business credit that way. He was basically, sort of like, oh, why would you even want to do that? Because that's our shim shammy thing. That's what we basically use to get people into our system to sell them on our, higher dollar amount package. But basically, you having the $69 a month thing, which is again now $99 a month, you're basically doing nothing to build your credit. That's just basically a guise for you to think that you're building credit when really you're not. And I'm just like, okay. And so ever since then, I basically canceled both of my companies out of the system to where I'm not being charged that $69 a month, which again is now $99 a month, because he basically told me that it was a sham. And I've talked to other people who build business credit, and they told me that, you don't have to have the $99 a month thing to build business credit with them. In fact, they try to make you believe that you do, but really you don't. It's going to take a little longer to do it through their system, but by law, they're supposed to actually allow you to be able to update your profile without you spending any money with them. And so you definitely don't want to be falling for the $9,000 thing or the $12,000 thing or whatever it's up to now. It's probably up to 15 grand. I don't even know. Do not spend that money on this because you can actually build uh, your own profile with them. And then there's Experian Business. It's just like your personal credit report, where all of your activity that you use on your unsecured business credit cards or your secured business credit card, if you get that from Wells Fargo, all of that activity is automatically reported through your company EIN number onto your Experian business report. TransUnion also has a report. Experian also has a report for business. It's just that it's not as easy to acquire the report as it is by going to the Experian business site. So this is level 1 and this is level 2. And the problem now with level 2 is that you really have to have a 2-year or older seasoned and functioning business. And by functioning, I mean that you're filing tax returns showing some kind of financial activity, and the financial activity is not $0. There's actually activity going on. If you don't have a 2-year or older seasoned company, you're going to have to purchase a 2-year shelf corporation, which can be very costly and not really as worth it as you think it is. It requires a brick and mortar business address or a virtual office address. Some of those virtual offices will cost you anywhere from $250 to $300 a month. And then you have a phone number that's actually piped directly into that physical location. And then it requires you to buy their credit building service, which right now the cheesy one, which I was told doesn't really do anything for you, is $99 a month or $12,000 for their mid package that they have for them to build credit for you. And then I will tell you, I'm going to be honest with you because nobody else will. If you don't have any gross business receipts or tax returns showing some kind of activity for a business, you're not going to be able to gain access to big blocks or business lines of credit. Big, I mean by 250, 300,000 or above, you're not going to gain access to any of that. So I'm sorry to be the one to tell you, but since our near banking collapse in 2008, banks have become very strict with lending large sum unsecured loans or business lines of credit to people unless they could show that they have some kind of business activity. But the good news, though, is that you don't have to have blocks to be able to gain access to a lot of business credit. This is a big, huge misconception that a lot of my students have, is that they think it's either getting the business lines of credit or these business loans, or basically they're not going to get the money that they're looking for. And that is a huge misconception because it's nothing but false. So here's what you're going to be focusing on instead. Getting what I call revolving lines of credit, starting very small and working your way up. An open revolving line of credit or a block is different than a closed loan. A closed loan basically is, here's $5,000, pay it back. And then when you pay it back, that's it. The loan's over, it's done, it's gone, you start over. A revolving line of credit is much like a credit card where you're given $5,000, then you borrow 250,000, or I'm sorry, 2,500. You pay it back, you get the access to the whole 5,000. Or if you only borrow 2,500, you have 2,500 left, and if you borrow the rest of it, then you don't get any more until you pay it back. So revolving is that it always stays open. And the cool thing about revolving lines of credit is that they will constantly keep bumping you up if you show a really good credit history with them. Borrow the money, pay it back, borrow the money, pay it back, and then 6 months you call them, say, I need more money. They'll give you more money, and they're not going to be asking for all of this stuff and twisting you for tax returns and all this other stuff if you just slowly but surely keep having them increase you. You can get a lot of unsecured business credit cards. There's pretty much no limit. I have so many different business credit cards that I have to have like a spreadsheet to be able to keep track of how many I have, what's due, what do I have access to. It's ridiculous. And my mistake, and I'm going to tell you what my mistake was so that you don't make the same mistake, is that when I was rebuilding my business credit, or my personal credit, I'm sorry, when I was rebuilding my personal credit, I made the mistake of getting too many personal credit cards. So now I have all these personal credit cards, and these are cards I do not want to close. And the reason I don't want to close them is because it damages your FICO, but it's only like 6 months though. You know, unlike a lot of people are like, oh, it's going to damage your FICO for a long time. No, no, no. It just affects your FICO for about 3 to 6 months, depending on how much you closed out. There was a couple cards I wanted to close out, but I've had them for so long. Like they were my starter cards when I first started rebuilding after my bankruptcy in 2003. I had a couple starter credit cards. One's through a company called First Premier Bank. The other two I have, one's a secured, one's an unsecured card. They're through a company called Applied Card Bank, and those are really good companies to start rebuilding your credit with. And so I kept those cards because I have so much history with them, even though the balances or the credit limits I have on them are just so small. I mean, the secured card I have 5,000 because I put the money into that card, but the unsecured card I think I have like 2,500 on one card and like 2,100 on the other, and so I don't ever use those cards. In fact, I think I pay a monthly fee on one card of $5 a month, and the other card I think, or no, it's 9.95 a month, and then the other card it's like I want to say it's $20 a month, but I keep them because I don't want to damage my FICO. Yes, unfortunately, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you don't want to close them ever." It's like I could close them. It would probably affect my FICO for about 6 months, and then it wouldn't affect it anymore. But I just keep them open just to keep them open because I have that long, lengthy history with them. And so my mistake was that when I was continuing to rebuild my personal credit, I kept getting more and more and more personal credit cards. I should have stopped at like four, and that was it. And what I should have focused on is, and it maxed out at four, maybe even maxed out at three. And this is word to the wise: if you are in the process of rebuilding your personal credit, max out at like 3 or 4 cards. Maybe have like 3 Visa or MasterCard cards, or maybe like a Visa, MasterCard, or Discover or something like that. And then maybe have some kind of like, department store card that you actually use. I ended up getting stuck with all these department store cards. The only one I actually use is Kohl's because my daughter loves that store. But other than that, I mean, I have J.C. Penney's, I have Sears, I have Home Depot, which I use Home Depot, every so often, but I'd rather put it on one of my business credit cards than use it on my personal, just for tax reasons. So Home Depot, I have, Victoria's Secret. I'm trying to think of all my cards that I have that are all of these different like store cards that I don't ever use. And I just, for some reason, it's like every single time I got a mailer in the mail, I was applying for this card. And now I have probably upwards of maybe 12 or 14 personal cards, and I have probably about the same, if not more, in business credit cards. And so now I'm looking at like 30 different credit cards. They're all unsecured, and well, two of them are secured still, but the rest of them are unsecured. And it's ridiculous. So when you are in the process of rebuilding your personal credit, severely limit your personal credit cards, and then after that, just focus on getting business credit cards. And the sky's the limit on how many business credit cards you get. I'm not going to give you a cap on that because, whatever you can handle and effectively manage, you can get. But your personal credit cards, you really do need to limit those because it just gets out of hand. And of course, all that ends up on your personal credit anyway. Your business credit cards do not end up on your personal credit report. Okay, so here's the basic scope of how this works. You get trade accounts only when you actually need them or use them for business purposes. So I tell a lot of my students that I have a Uline account. I have actually 2 Uline accounts for both of my businesses, but I actually use those. I get shipping boxes, I get, bubble wrap and those peanuts for packing. I use all of that stuff and I use those accounts. But if you're going to be getting a trade account that you're never going to use, then don't get the trade account. An Office Depot card is a really good card to get for a trade account. And then, eventually at some point in time, you're going to be using your business's credit to get a mortgage for your investment properties, in addition to using your own personal credit. Remember what I said: when you actually get an LLC for one of your real estate properties, you're going to be using yourself as one of the entities and your S corporation as the other entity, which is 100% legal. And when both of those entities have really good credit, then that means you're going to get the best mortgage interest rates on your property. So in a nutshell, here's how the new business building strategy actually works. Just like with your personal credit, and I have a little chart here, which is sort of cute. There's you, and then there's your social security number, which gives you the ability to access and apply for credit. And then when you actually use that credit, it is reported to Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion, which are the 3 credit reporting bureaus. So this works the same with business credit now. Here's your corporate resolution paperwork, which you then in turn get an EIN through the irs.gov website. You then use your EIN to acquire business credit cards and so forth, and then whatever usage that you have or activity that you have on those credit cards will be reported to Experian Business. TransUnion and Equifax also has reports that are generated, but they're still in the very early stages of being able to set up their business side. Experian Business has really taken the reins as far as this whole building business thing goes, business credit thing goes. And so the rest of the other two will actually step up, as time goes on. But right now, when you have an EIN, just like a social security number, since it's the same length, the digits and everything is actually running through those three systems, believe it or not, the Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. So just because you think that you have an unsecured business credit card, you think it's only going through Experian Business, the answer is no, it is not. It is a 9-digit number, just like a social security number, which means it's actually running through those other two systems as well. So you're actually building credit with those three credit reporting bureaus and not just the one. It's just Experian Business, like I said, is really taking the reins as far as this whole process goes, and it's going to take a little while for the other two to actually step up. And so most of the time when banks and lenders are actually looking at your business credit, they're going to be running you through the Experian Business system, but they can realistically run you through all three systems now because your EIN acts as your business's social security number, which means all of your credit is being reported through. This is why I like this system better than the DNB. DNB gives you a DUNS number, which is a completely different number, having nothing to do with the three credit reporting bureaus, which is somewhat of a problem because you actually have to do all the work to set up your credit with Dun & Bradstreet. But with Experian Business, Equifax, and TransUnion, it's done all automatically. Now, obviously, you have to have good personal credit. I've already gone through some of this stuff with you to be able to make all this work. Now, when you're in the process of rebuilding your personal credit, I do recommend, like I said, cap yourself off at 3 or 4 unsecured credit cards, and they can even be secured credit cards. I don't really care what they are because you don't want to get out of hand with the credit cards. Get yourself at least one auto loan or lease. It could be some cheap piece of crap car, but get yourself some kind of loan or lease when it comes to the auto, just because that builds credit very, very quickly, especially if it's through a very reputable, company like Ford Credit or somebody like that, major bank or major auto loan company. Get at least 1 or 2 credit cards to start. And again, cap yourself off at 3 or 4 personal credit cards. And this is the way to start rebuilding your credit at the same time as chiseling off some of those negatives. But you can actually fix and rebuild credit at the same time, your personal credit at the same time as actually working on your business credit. Most bad credit can actually be cleaned up within 6 to 12 months, and as long as you are very consistent with the process, you could do it. Just start hacking away at those delinquencies, and at the same time, getting yourself some really good clean credit that you inject into the system, which would be getting yourself a couple of secured or unsecured credit cards, as well as getting yourself that auto loan and so forth. So, in a nutshell, at this point, you'll have an S corporation in your home state, an EIN number. A business address is good. It should not be your home address, and it can't be a PO box. But what it can be is like a UPS store type of address. It could be, one of those mom and pop mailbox places, like a personal mailbox place. Business phone number could be a second cell number or a Vonage phone number. Separate business email address, which could literally be a Gmail or Yahoo address that takes you 2 seconds to set up. And you want a business bank account. Now, if you have poor personal credit, you might want to go with Wells Fargo just because they have the secured business credit card program that they don't offer at other banks. And so Wells Fargo will require that you have a business bank account with them if you're going to get the secured business credit card. But if you have decent personal credit, I like to stick with Bank of America. And the reason I like Bank of America is because they are an international bank, and I've never had any problem. Well, I've had one problem with them years ago, but aside from that, I mean, one of the things I've always liked about Bank of America is that I could put high volumes of business through my account, and there's no red flags or anything that's gone up. Years ago, I had a problem with, if you remember, Great Western, which turned into, what did it turn into? It turned into something else, and then eventually it ended up turning into Chase Bank. But Great Western had issues. I was actually putting through, it wasn't a large sum of money. I didn't think it was anyway for a business that was doing well, but we were actually grossing, I think, around 200 to 225,000 a month in revenues, and they thought that that was suspicious activity, and and they were constantly asking me questions about what do you guys do, and I felt like just being facetious and saying we're drug dealers, but I didn't, they'd probably report me to the IRS then and there, but they were just really suspicious about all of our activity. And then I ended up moving to Bank of America, who never ever questioned the volume of business that we did because they're used to people that are putting millions through their account every month. So they didn't have any issue with me with my paltry little 225,000 a month I was putting through. So, ever since then I've sort of been consistent with Bank of America just simply because I don't have anybody asking me a bunch of questions about, what am I doing, and because I've always had really good successful businesses that I've had, and I don't the last thing I need is a banker thinking I'm doing something suspicious because I'm actually doing a high volume of business. So that's why I always stuck with Bank of America all these years. So, Bank of America also, because they're such a large bank, they don't think twice about giving you large, credit limits on stuff. Other banks will. I've had problems with U.S. Bank because they're so small and they have spotty locations here and there. U.S. Bank is like really tight on their money. It's like they won't give anybody anything. So I would never use U.S. Bank for any kind of business line of credit or anything. Wells Fargo, I don't have any experience with Wells Fargo as far as their lines of credit or anything like that. But Bank of America has always been really good just because they are so large. And because they're so large, they have no issue giving you much larger lines of credit. I noticed also, too, that some of my students have told me Citibank also gives large lines of credit. So you can get a DUNS number through Dun & Bradstreet. You're supposed to be able to get a free one. If your corporation's been around for a year or two, when you type in your corporate name into their system, which they're going to make you do anyway, when you first get there at dnb.com. A lot of times they'll already have a DUNS number for you. If you're a brand new corporation that you just formed, then you're going to have to ask them for a DUNS number because they're not going to have one in there already. So, they'll try to sell you in the 99 a month plan. If you're not in your system, they're going to charge you $229 or an upgraded option of $599. But you need to get the free DUNS number because our focus is not going to be on the Dun & Bradstreet system. So sorry to burst your bubble if you really wanted to do all this extra work and you really wanted to build your own credit profile and you really wanted to spend all this extra money. But you can do all this later on in the process. If you've done it already, you've already laid some really good solid groundwork. And some of these banks, like Bank of America, will actually ask you for your DUNS number, and it's good to already have all that stuff in place. But I don't know about you, but I absolutely cannot stand doing work that I know is supposed to be done for me. So building my own credit profile when they're supposed to be doing that for me really, really bothers me. And so I strongly recommend that you focus on the Experian business system, which won't require you to have a virtual office, which won't require you to have a brick and mortar business, which won't require you to have all the things that Experian business or Dun & Bradstreet requires you to have. So, what to do to start building business credit now? Now, if you are in a situation where you have poor personal credit, then you might want to get your business bank account started at Wells Fargo, then ask them about how to get their secured business MasterCard so you can start the process of building business credit through the Experian business system by using the credit card. You can also get a fleet business gas card. My fleet card is through Chevron. Please note, though, that a fleet card will require you to pay off the balance 100% every month. So don't be racking it up to $2,000 worth of gas and then wondering how you're going to pay the bill because they do require that the balance is paid in full. And then work on fixing and rebuilding your personal credit to exceed that 680 mid FICO, ideally 700 before proceeding further. Now, if you have good personal credit, I recommend you go to Costco and get their Costco Business American Express. I've had students that there's pretty much a 100% success rate doing this. So provided that you do fall into that 680 or 700 plus mid FICO, you go to Costco, physically get your ass rolling out the door, drive your happy ass down to Costco, and actually physically go to the membership counter and get the Costco Business American Express. Make sure you bring at least a business card and or your checkbook showing your business name, otherwise they're not going to give you the card, and you make sure you have your EIN number. And so they will approve you right then and there. Let me tell you a quick story. I actually had not only a bankruptcy still on my credit report, when they pulled my credit. But I also filed, I think it was like 25 or 30,000 against American Express, and they still gave me the card. I still even have anybody who wants to, see proof of this, look at my American Express cards. It actually says member since 1995. And that first American Express I got in 1995, which was 20 years ago, that was the card I actually ended up filing bankruptcy against. And they still kept me. So I know that I'm in their system, and I know that they must know that I filed bankruptcy against it, but they still gave me a Costco Business American Express. I didn't know that I was going to get approved. In fact, I could have sworn up and down when the lady behind the counter asked me to apply for it. I told her, I'm like, I'm not going to get approved. I filed for bankruptcy against these people, back in the late 90s, or actually the early 2000s. And so she says just apply for it anyway. They're very lenient when it comes to Costco. So again, the Costco element is the element that you need to be fully aware of here. Please don't try to, I mean, I've had students say, oh, I'm too lazy to go down there. I don't want to go get a membership with Costco. So I'm just going to listen to Monica halfway and just file, just fill out an application for American Express online. And then they get declined, and then they come crying to me, oh, Monica, I tried to do it. Well, what did you do exactly? Well, I applied for an American Express card online and I was declined. Well, of course you did, because you didn't listen to me. I said go to Costco directly and get their Costco Business American Express, which, by the way, I love the Costco Business American Express. It's one of the only reward point credit cards I actually use. Every quarter, they'll actually send a check on your statement, and my checks range from like $600 to $800 that I can actually spend at the store. So basically, I just tear off the check on the last page of my statement. And again, it comes every quarter, so you have to watch out for it. And then I'll take it to Costco, and I can use that $600 to $800. My last one was almost $900, where you can use it at Costco. And so I love that card. It's the only Business American Express card that's actually still worth something. And so make sure again you go to Costco physically and get the American Express card. And then after that, 6 to 8 months or even a year later, you can get any American Express that you want, probably with exception of the black card, of course. But you can get any American Express. Just they'll send you notifications by way of mail. And I recommend you maybe consider getting the Delta card the next time you're at the airport and they're trying to harass you to get a card from the Delta American Express. 6 months goes by, get that Delta card. Apply for it. Um, if you fly a lot, especially, or you can get the Plum card. I recommend either the Plum card or the Blue card. Don't get the Platinum or the Gold card because they require you to, pay off your balance every month. And the Platinum benefits are just not the way they used to be anymore. So I don't even use my Platinum card anymore. But yeah, American Express will get you pretty much virtually any card you want 6 months to a year after you get that Costco American Express. So they approved me for $3,500 on the spot. Most of my students are able to get anywhere from 5 to 10,000 on the spot. So again, that's how you start. Then after that, open yourself a business bank account. I recommend if you have good credit, get yourself a Bank of America account, and then apply for one of their unsecured business credit cards. They have a Cash Rewards MasterCard. Um, and then they'll usually defer your interest for about 6 months or 9 months, depending after you open up your business credit card. So, yeah, definitely open up an account there, and then you can then apply for a small revolving line of credit about 6 months or so after that. Um, Bank of America starts you off at 25,000, and they're going to want to see that you have um, a 2-year-old business with current ownership. Um, Wells Fargo is a little less. They're 10,000. So again, if you wanted to start with their business revolving line of credit, they have a $10,000 minimum. So the importance of real credit accounts. Obviously, real credit accounts are the ones that are directly reported to Experian Business as well as Equifax and TransUnion now through your company EIN, which is a lot easier than trying to physically plug in all of your stuff through the DUNS system. Some of your credit cards will actually ask for your DNB number, your DUNS number, in which case they'll actually report your credit activity through Dun & Bradstreet. However, most of them do not. So I think what's going to be happening here is that Dun & Bradstreet is going to be slowly but surely, hopefully, recessing into the woodwork They're not how they used to be in the 90s and the 80s, where they used to be the cornerstone of business credit. Any and every reputable bank and lender would pull a Dunn's report, or DMB report, and now they don't anymore. And I see, the way I see it with my crystal ball is that Experian Business will definitely monopolize the market. And then maybe shortly thereafter, TransUnion and Equifax will come up with some, credit reporting. I guess you could say like reports where you can pull your. I don't know if TransUnion does it yet. I know Experian Business allows you to pull your own business credit report, but I know that they're starting to quickly come up to speed as far as coming up with these different products. I don't know if a lot of people understand how these credit reporting bureaus make their money, but they actually don't make their money the way you think they do. They actually make money selling your information to other companies. They make a boatload of billions of dollars selling your personal information, including your age, your income bracket, the types of credit cards that you have. And they sell all this information to different people who are trying to rent mailing lists to be able to send you catalogs and send you other types of mailers. So if you're noticing all of a sudden that you're getting all of these mailers, say for example you are a card holder of Victoria's Secret, and you all of a sudden you're getting catalogs from other companies that are sort of like Victoria's Secret, like Venus Swimwear and other companies. It's because, these TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian, they're selling your information to different mailing list brokers out there, and then they are in turn renting your lists, your information, based on your buying habits and your buying history and that kind of thing, through the credit cards that you have. And so that's how they're making their money. They make billions of dollars off of your personal information. That's how they make money. So why would they turn their back now on the business side of it, when they could very well double their income by selling the same business information that they've been selling on the personal side for the last several decades? And the answer is they're not going to do that. So, Equifax and TransUnion will quickly step up. I mean, Experian was the smart one out of the three, and they knew right away that this is how they could double their income. But now the other two are going to come up, and once all three come up, I could reasonably assured and tell you that the Dun and Bradstreet system will cease to exist. Now, one thing that you should be aware of, though, is that for international funding, Dun and Bradstreet will still be the cornerstone because, you know, if you go to a bank in China, for example, they're not going to really recognize, the internal system that we have in North America here, which which also includes Canada. So those of you that are Canadian that are wondering how this fits in, you guys have a social insurance number, which is the same amount of digits as our social security number. So you're basically on the same system that the United States is on. So when you're building business credit, all of this stuff, personal credit, business credit, all applies to you as well. And so, if you're trying to, get money from India or China, they're going to be using the Dun and Bradstreet system. However, most of the time you're going to be dealing with companies that are American, and if they're borrowing money to be able to lend money to you from outside companies, then that's going to be on them as far as their relationships that they have with international banks and so forth. So I don't see that you'd really have to be overly worried about the Dun and Bradstreet system, even though that will bolster your opportunities to be able to get more money as time goes on. It's just that I want the majority of my students to be focusing in on this system, the Experian Business system, as opposed to the Dun and Bradstreet system. So what doesn't happen is that your trade accounts aren't going to be working with the whole Experian Business thing. That's more of the Dun and Bradstreet system. Like Uline, FedEx, your local printer, anybody who you have credit terms with, they're going to be with the Dun and Bradstreet system. They're not going to be working through the Experian Business system, um, unless it's like Home Depot, where they actually have your EIN number online. So obviously real credit cards are required to build your business credit as quickly as possible. So again, these are my recommendations as far as the best credit cards to start with. I recommend everybody start with the American Express, namely the Costco one that you have to physically go to Costco to get. City Business also offers some high credit limits for businesses, but Bank of America, I like their cards. I have a lot of Bank of America unsecured credit cards. They've given me the highest limits that so far to date, next to City Business. Um, Chase Inc., Capital One, Discover Business, all of these, U.S. Bank. The trick with American Express is that once you get your first American Express, which will be, again, hint, hint, your Costco, Then you use it for 6 months and call American Express, and you can get any other card you want. I recommend the Delta card if you fly a lot, or I recommend also the Blue or the Plum card. But again, you start with the Business American Express. Okay, don't be lazy and try to do this online. It's not going to work. Um, and then, of course, caution about using the regular American Express, like the Platinum card, for example, is that you do have to pay off the entire balance every single month, so not really recommended there. So you'll be focusing now on just the Experian business side. That's it. You're not going to be focusing in on anything else right now, just the Experian business side, and then later on, you could then go with the Dun & Bradstreet system. But right now, Experian business, which means you don't have to have your virtual office, you don't have to pay all that extra money for a 2-year seasoned corporation. You can have a brand new corporation and get a new EIN number and still be able to build a lot of credit with the Experian business system. And then as you bolster up your credit score with both the Experian business as well as your personal credit, then you can start the process of building your Dun & Bradstreet, especially when you start getting some kind of business activity, because they want to see business activity, tax returns and so forth. So the secrets to revolving lines of credit is that they're going to want to see at least 2 years old, your corporation, and small line of credit is 25,000. Usually Wells Fargo will go as low as 10. Most banks will want to see collateral with lines of credit above 100,000. A lot of people don't know that. They'll also want to see company and personal tax returns for the last 2 years on this stuff. So again, you have to understand what's happening when you get into these higher thresholds of wanting to get business. So this is how, or business credit rather. This is how you can get unsecured credit cards and use them as liquid cash. Very easy to do. You basically just apply for a bunch of different unsecured business credit cards. Make sure that you tell the bank what your projected business income is, not what your current, but your projected is. And then this is how you can actually get liquid cash from all of your business credit cards. You can use PayPal, and you can use what they call convenience checks from your credit cards. A lot of times they'll send you these checks with the statement every month or every other month. But the problem with convenience checks, though, is that they're kind of expensive. PayPal is much better to save on fees, and if you have a merchant account for your business, you could use this as well. You just simply charge your own credit card. It'll end up in your own business bank account. For PayPal, it's best to obviously have a separate account, preferably that of a spouse or other trusted family member. This person will send you a money request, or you could send them a gift, and this will be charged to your business credit card just like any other charge. It'll be deposited into the PayPal account, which can then be transferred into a bank account that hopefully you can access, and it's no more complicated than that. But you could save yourself thousands of dollars on PayPal fees, because they do charge 2 to 3% fees, which is a lot when you're tapping into, say, $10,000 at a time. That's $200 to $300 you're going to be paying, which is not much different than paying on those convenience checks, which is about 3 to 4%. So there's a fee aversion trick with PayPal business payments. So you have a trusted partner set up an account through FreshBooks.com. There's also Harvest, and they'll set up a PayPal account. And the transaction fee is only 50 cents. So the FreshBook fee, they charge $19.95 a month, offering the first month free. An alternative company is Harvest or GetHarvest.com, which offers the same type of setup above, but it's only $12 a month. And basically, it's a very, very simple system where you could basically, they invoice you out, you pay the amount, and it's a 50-cent charge. What people don't understand with this type of leverage is that you can get a ton of unsecured business credit cards. Right off the bat, most people, even with a brand new corporation, can get 3 to 5 unsecured business credit cards totaling 50 to 75,000, and then you can turn that into liquid cash, and you can use that cash for down payment funds. I think a lot of people with this system, they falsely assume that they have to get business lines of credit or loans, and then they quickly find out how difficult that is when banks are looking for their personal and business tax returns for the last 2 years, and they want to see business activity. And it gets very, very complicated and very disheartening, to say the least, at that point in time. So as long as you understand, Experian obviously gets built by itself. Dun & Bradstreet you have to build. So for the purposes of this, you're going to be focusing on the Experian business system, and then later on, you could then focus on Dun & Bradstreet. This is Monica Main signing off. I'll see you at the top.